I thought freedom meant working from a laptop on a balcony overlooking rice fields. Turns out, freedom just means watching your savings disappear while you convince yourself it's all part of the journey. If our stories resonate with you, don't forget to like, comment, and tell us where you're watching from. This story was shared with us by one of our subscribers. He asked us not to share his name, but he wanted his experience heard. I was 43 when I walked out of my last performance review at a Vancouver tech firm. 15 years I'd given them. 15 years of conference rooms that smelled like stale coffee and recycled air. My manager was 28. She kept using words like synergy and bandwidth, while explaining why my project management style was no longer aligned with company culture. I nodded, smiled, shook her hand, walked to my car and sat there for 20 minutes staring at the steering wheel. My phone buzzed. Text from my ex-wife about our daughter's tuition payment. I'd already sent it. She knew I'd already sent it. She just wanted to remind me I was useful for something. I drove home to my empty condo, poured a whiskey, opened my laptop, started searching. I don't even remember what I typed first. Maybe escape Vancouver, or start over abroad, or something equally desperate. The algorithm did the rest. Video after video of guys younger than me sitting poolside in Bali, coding in hammocks, drinking smoothies at co-working spaces with ocean views. They all looked so free, so unburdened. I watched for hours, then days, then weeks. Chiang Mai kept coming up. Cheap rent, great food, safe, easy visa runs. A place where a Western salary went far and nobody knew you were divorced, demoted, or drowning. I had $78,000 in savings. The condo sold fast. My daughter was in her second year at UBC and barely called anyway. My friends had slowly stopped inviting me out after the divorce. What was keeping me? I booked a one-way ticket in November. I left in January. I told myself it was a fresh start. I think I knew. Even then, it was a retreat. The flight was long. I watched 3 movies and didn't retain a single plot. When we landed in Bangkok, the heat hit me like a wall. I took a connecting flight to Chiang Mai. Got a taxi to Nimman. The driver didn't speak much English. I didn't care. I liked the silence. My Airbnb was a small studio on the 3rd floor of a narrow building tucked between a 7-Eleven and a massage parlor. It had a bed, a desk, a tiny balcony, and air conditioning that rattled when it ran. I dropped my bags and stood on the balcony looking out at the street below. Motorbikes everywhere. Street vendors grilling meat on sticks. A temple with gold trim glowing in the distance. I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not happiness, but possibility. Like maybe I could be someone different here. Someone who hadn't failed at marriage or career or keeping friends. I unpacked slowly, hung my shirts in the closet, set up my laptop on the desk, checked my bank account. $78,000. It felt like a lot. It felt like enough. I went to bed that first night, listening to the city hum outside my window, and thought, for the first time in months, that I'd done something right. The first month passed in a kind of haze. I got a 60-day tourist visa and planned a quick run to Laos before it expired. I found a co-working space called Pun Space near the old city. 24-hour access, fast Wi-Fi, free coffee, and a mix of younger digital nomads hunched over laptops pretending to work while scrolling Instagram. I picked up a few freelance consulting gigs through old contacts. Nothing huge. A project timeline audit here. A process optimization review there. Enough to cover rent and food. I fell into a routine. Wake up at 7. Walk to a cafe near my building. Order an iced Americano and sit outside watching the city wake up. Nobody knew me. Nobody cared. It was the best kind of invisible. I'd work until lunch, then grab street food from a cart. Pad krapao, cow man gai. Things I couldn't pronounce but learned to point at. Afternoons I'd work from the co-working space. Evenings I'd walk. Just walk. No destination. I found a bar near the moat that did language exchange nights on Thursdays. Mostly young backpackers and a few locals practicing English. I went once out of boredom. That's where I met her. She was sitting alone at a corner table with a notebook and a half-empty glass of lime soda. Mid-20s, I guessed. Dressed simply. Jeans and a white blouse. No makeup that I could see. She looked up when I sat down at the communal table and smiled politely. I nodded. Didn't expect conversation. Then she said, "You're new." Not a question. Just an observation. I laughed. That obvious? She shrugged. "You look like you're still figuring out where things are." Her English was near perfect. Barely an accent. I asked where she learned it. She said she tutored university students and did freelance translation work. We talked for maybe an hour. She asked about Vancouver. I asked about Chiang Mai. She was curious but not desperate. No sob story. No requests. Just conversation. She paid for her own drink when she left. I noticed that. I noticed a lot of things. The way she listened when I talked. The way she didn't ask about money or what I did for work. She mentioned she lived near the university in a small apartment she'd rented for 3 years. Stable, independent. When she stood to leave, she said, "Maybe I'll see you next week." I said maybe. I went home that night feeling lighter than I had in months. Her name was Wipharat. I started seeing her every Thursday at the language exchange. Then she invited me to a night market on Sunday. We walked through rows of vendors selling handmade crafts and fried insects and knockoff designer bags. She laughed when I tried to haggle in broken Thai, told me I was doing it wrong, showed me how. We got dinner at a small restaurant she knew. Tom yum soup and grilled fish. She insisted we split the bill. I tried to pay. She refused. "I have money," she said simply. I liked that. It felt real. We started meeting outside the language exchange. I took her to a jazz bar I'd found near Tha Pei Gate. She took me hiking up Doi Suthep. We ate khao soi at her favorite spot, a tiny shop house with plastic stools and no menu. She talked about wanting to open her own tutoring center someday. Not a huge operation. Just a small space where she could run group classes and work for herself. I told her about my vague plan to build a remote consultancy. Maybe teach project management online. It felt good to share that with someone. She didn't judge. Didn't tell me it was impossible. Just listened. One Saturday, she introduced me to a few of her friends at a cafe. They were young professionals, a graphic designer, an accountant, a nurse, not bar workers, not the girls I'd seen other expats with. I felt respected, seen, like I was part of something normal. 2 months in, I realized I was falling for her. It was careful, deliberate. I'd been burned before. My ex-wife had spent the last 3 years of our marriage emotionally checked out, while I pretended everything was fine. I wasn't going to repeat that. Wipharat felt different. She had her own life, her own friends, her own apartment. One evening we were sitting on my balcony drinking cheap beer, and she mentioned her parents. They lived up country, a small village I'd never heard of. She sent them money every month. Not a lot, just enough to help. She said it matter-of-factly. No guilt trip, no expectation. I asked if they needed more. She shook her head. "No, they're okay. I just help when I can." I offered once to contribute. She looked at me seriously and said, "I don't need your money." The refusal made me trust her more. It sounds stupid now, but at the time, it felt like proof. Proof she wanted me, not my wallet. Proof this was real. The co-working space had regulars. I became friendly with a few. There was Finn, an Irish guy in his early 30s who day-traded crypto and talked constantly about moving to Bali. There was Chloe, an Australian content creator who filmed herself eating street food for YouTube. And there was Prakash, a quiet Indian guy who ran a dropshipping business and kept to himself mostly. We'd grab beers after work sometimes, talk about visa strategies, compare monthly expenses. One night I mentioned Wipharat. Finn raised an eyebrow. "Local girlfriend?" I bristled immediately. "It's not like that. She's educated. Independent." Chloe smirked into her beer. "Yeah, they all are until they're not." I felt my jaw tighten. "You don't know her," Prakash spoke quietly. "Just keep your finances separate, man. Always." I stood up, said I had to go. They didn't stop me. I walked home angry, defensive. That night, Wipharat asked if I was okay. I lied and said yes. I didn't tell her what they'd said, didn't want to hear her response, didn't want to plant seeds of doubt in something that felt good. 4 months in, things shifted. Wipharat started coming over less. When she did, she seemed distracted. Quiet. I asked what was wrong. She'd brush it off. say she was tired, busy with students. I didn't push. Then one night she showed up at my place and she'd been crying. I pulled her inside, sat her down, asked what happened. She didn't speak for a long time, just sat there wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. 2 days ago, he's in the hospital. Up country. She pulled out her phone and showed me photos. An older man in a hospital bed. Tubes. Machines. Then, she showed me the invoice. 85,000 baht. I did the math. About 3,200 Canadian dollars. She was shaking. I've been covering it, but my savings are almost gone. I don't know what to do. I thought about Finn and Chloe and Prakash, thought about their warnings, but this wasn't some story. This was real. I'd met her friends, seen her work. She'd refused my money before. This was different. I asked if she needed help. She looked at me with red eyes. I don't want to ask you. We haven't been together that long. I didn't know who else to talk to. I transferred the money that night. $3,200. She cried when I showed her the confirmation, promised she'd pay me back in installments. I told her not to worry about it. Just take care of your father. She hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. 2 weeks later, she told me the treatment was working. He was stable, recovering. I felt good, validated, like I'd done the right thing, like maybe Finn and Chloe and Prakash were just cynical and jaded and wrong. A month later, Wipharat brought up the tutoring center again. We were having dinner at her favorite noodle shop, and she seemed lighter, hopeful. She'd been looking at spaces, found one near the university. Small, affordable. 18,000 baht a month in rent. She could run group classes, expand her client base, build something real. She just needed startup capital, furniture, whiteboards, laptops, marketing materials. She estimated 200,000 baht, about 7,500 Canadian. She presented it carefully, not as a favor, as an investment. You could be a partner, she said. I'd pay you back with interest, or we could split the profits. I hesitated. My savings were down to 70,000. I hadn't been hustling as hard on freelance work, partly because I was distracted, partly because I was lonely and she filled that space. But this felt different. This felt like building something together. A future. I asked to see a business plan. She pulled out a notebook, showed me projected student numbers, revenue estimates, expenses. It looked reasonable, modest. She wasn't asking me to fund some luxury dream, just a small classroom space and basic equipment. I agreed. We drafted a handwritten contract on a napkin, signed it. I transferred the money the next day. She was ecstatic, kissed me in the middle of the restaurant, talked about our future, about what we'd build. The space got rented within a week. Furniture arrived, desks, chairs, a whiteboard. She posted flyers around the university, started getting inquiries. Students started enrolling. For 2 months. It looked real. I'd stop by sometimes and see her teaching. 6 or 7 students in the room. Notebooks open. Engaged. I felt proud, like I'd invested in something good, something that mattered. Then the crack started, small at first. Wipharat was always at the center, early mornings, late nights. She'd come home exhausted. I offered to help with admin work, scheduling, invoicing. She waved me off. You don't understand the system here. It's complicated. I didn't push, but I noticed the student numbers weren't growing. She said marketing was the issue. Needed more visibility, more flyers, maybe some Facebook ads. Another 50,000 baht, about 2,000 Canadian. I hesitated, asked to see the financials. She got defensive. You don't trust me. I backed down, transferred the money. Her phone started buzzing constantly. Late night calls she'd take outside. When I asked who it was, she'd say family stuff. Then the requests started coming faster. Her younger brother needed school fees, 30,000 baht. Her mother's house needed repairs, 40,000 baht. Each time there were tears. Paperwork I couldn't read. Urgency. I checked my bank account. 55,000 left. I was anxious, but I couldn't say no. The co-working space had thinned out. Finn moved to Bali. Chloe went back to Australia. Prakash still showed up, but he avoided eye contact now. I felt isolated. Wipharat was my only anchor. If I lost her, what did I have left? So, I kept transferring money. My freelance income had dried up. I'd been too distracted to hustle, too emotionally drained to pitch. My savings hit 48,000. I needed to have the conversation. I needed to see where the money was going. I showed up at the tutoring center unannounced one afternoon. It was nearly empty. 2 students sitting in the corner. A young woman I'd never met was at the front desk. I asked where Wipharat was. She said, "Out meeting clients." I asked when she'd be back. She shrugged. I waited. 2 hours. When Wipharat finally arrived, she looked surprised to see me. Not happy, surprised. I asked if we could talk privately. We stepped outside. I kept my voice calm. "I need to see the books." She stiffened. "Why? You don't trust me after everything?" I held my ground. "I just want to understand where we are financially." She sighed, pulled out a notebook from her bag. Handwritten entries. Vague categories. The numbers didn't add up. I asked about the loan repayment she'd promised. She snapped. "My father almost died. My family is struggling. And you're worried about money." I felt the guilt rise, but I pushed through it. "I'm not trying to be selfish. I just need to see a plan. A timeline." She started crying. Called me selfish. Said I didn't understand Thai family obligations. Then she turned and walked away, left me standing outside the center. I went inside, sat down in one of the empty chairs. My heart was pounding. That night, she didn't come home. She showed up the next afternoon, apologetic, tired. She said she'd overreacted. Stress, family pressure, the business struggles. I wanted to believe her. I wanted everything to go back to the way it was 2 months ago when we were hiking temples and splitting bowls of khao swai. But I couldn't shake the feeling. Something was wrong. I started digging quietly. I contacted the landlord of the tutoring center. Asked about the rent. He said 12,000 baht a month, not 18,000. I felt sick. I pulled out the hospital invoice she'd shown me months ago, searched the hospital name online, found their website, checked the invoice number format. It didn't match. Not even close. I sat on my bed staring at the papers. My hands were shaking. I called her, asked her to come over. She arrived an hour later. I showed her everything. The landlord's message, the hospital invoice discrepancies. She froze. Didn't speak. Then she pivoted. "I had to inflate some things. You wouldn't have helped otherwise." I stared at her. "So you lied?" She was crying now, but it felt different, mechanical, rehearsed. "I needed the money. My family is real. The debt is real. I couldn't tell you everything." I asked how much was true. She wouldn't answer, just kept crying. I realized, slowly and horribly, that I didn't know this person at all. I'd built a story around her, projected my hopes onto her, and she'd let me. Because it was profitable, I moved out the next day, took a cheap room near the old city. 4,000 baht a month. Shared bathroom down the hall. Wipharat didn't fight it. Didn't beg me to stay, just asked, flatly, if I wanted my money back. I said yes. She laughed. Not meanly, just tired. "I don't have it. I sent it to my family. Paid off debts. It's gone." I asked about the tutoring center. She shrugged. "I'll close it. Or sell it. I don't know." I looked at her and realized she wasn't evil. She wasn't some master manipulator. She was just desperate, and I was convenient. I calculated the losses later that night. 3,200 for her father, 7,500 for the business. Another 6,800 in marketing and family emergencies. 17,500 USD. My savings sat at 30,500. Not broke, but broken. I stopped going to the co-working space. Stopped going anywhere. I lay in my narrow bed, scrolling through old messages, looking for the moment it all went wrong. I couldn't find it. Just a slow, gradual descent. Each decision made sense in the moment. each one built on the last. I'd been willingly blind. I finally reached out to Prakash, asked if he wanted to grab a drink. We met at a quiet bar away from the tourist areas. He didn't gloat, didn't say I told you so, just listened while I laid it all out. When I finished, he nodded slowly. I lost 12,000 to a woman in Bangkok 3 years ago, he said. Different story. Same result. I asked if he stayed in Thailand. He nodded. Yeah, but I changed how I move. No relationships, no investments, just work and travel. I realized this was the pattern. Expats, swapping war stories, building emotional walls, becoming cynical and guarded and alone. I didn't want that, but I also didn't know what else to be. Prakash took a sip of his beer. I heard she's done this before. Different guys, different amounts. I felt like a cliché, a statistic, just another lonely Western guy who got played. I asked if he thought she ever cared. He shrugged. Maybe. Doesn't really matter now, does it? The tone in his voice was pure resignation. We drank in silence for a while. Then I paid the tab and walked back to my room alone. I sat on the edge of my bed doing the math. I had enough money to stay in Thailand another year if I was careful. Or I could go back to Canada. Back to what? My condo was rented to a young couple. My job was gone. My ex-wife had remarried some dentist and moved to Kelowna. My daughter was busy with university and her own life. I opened my laptop, pulled up LinkedIn, looked at my old profile. Project manager, 15 years experience. I thought about reaching out to former colleagues. The idea exhausted me. I thought about Wipharat. Wondered if she thought about me. Probably not. I was a transaction, a means to an end. I opened my banking app, stared at the number, $30,500. It wasn't nothing, but it wasn't the $78,000 I'd arrived with either. I'd lost more than money. I'd lost the story I told myself. The one where moving to Chiang Mai was a brave reinvention, a fresh start. It wasn't. It was just running, and you can't outrun yourself. I started walking the city again. Early mornings, before the heat set in. I'd watch monks in orange robes moving silently through the streets collecting alms, watch vendors setting up their carts, slicing fruit, grilling meat. The city waking up without me. I was invisible again. But it felt different now. Heavier. I passed the co-working space once. Saw new faces through the window. Younger guys hunched over laptops, probably telling themselves the same stories I had. I kept walking. I thought about Finn and Chloe and Prakash. They'd warned me. I'd ignored them. I thought I was different. Special. I thought I'd found something real in the chaos. I passed the tutoring center one morning. It was closed. A for rent sign in the window. I stood outside for a minute. Felt nothing. Just emptiness. I went to a cafe and sat down with a notebook. Started writing. Not a journal. Just facts. What happened. What I lost. What I ignored. I saved the file on my laptop. Titled it, What I Paid to Feel Wanted. I didn't send it to anyone. Just needed to see it written down. Needed to stop lying to myself. I booked a ticket back to Vancouver. Not permanent. Just a visit. I told myself I'd come back to Chiang Mai. I probably wouldn't. I thought about what I'd tell people when they asked how it went. The truth felt too humiliating. The lie felt too exhausting. I settled on something vague. It didn't work out. I wondered if Wipharat ever thought about me. If she felt guilty. If she told herself a story that made it okay. I'd never know. And maybe that was the point. I wasn't a person to her. Just an opportunity. And she wasn't a villain to me. Just a mirror, reflecting back everything I was running from. Loneliness. Failure. The fear of being nobody. I realized the $55,000 I lost wasn't the real cost. The real cost was the 18 months I spent lying to myself, pretending geography could fix what was broken inside me, pretending I was building something when I was just filling space. My last night in Chiang Mai, I sat on the narrow balcony of my cheap room. The city was quiet, a few motorbikes humming past, distant music from a bar somewhere. I thought about the guy who arrived here 18 months ago. The one with $78,000 and a head full of digital nomad fantasies, the one who thought he could reinvent himself. I was embarrassed by that guy, but also sad for him. He was trying, he just didn't know what he was trying to fix. I packed light the next morning, left most of my stuff in the room. Clothes, books. Someone would use them. I checked my bank account one last time. 28,300 after the flight. Enough to start over. Again. I didn't know what that looked like yet. I wasn't hopeful. But I wasn't destroyed either. Just older, more honest. I thought about the YouTube videos that brought me here, the guys coding poolside, living the dream. I wondered how many other men were watching those videos right now, planning their escape, booking their tickets. I wanted to warn them, but I knew they wouldn't listen. I didn't. I closed my laptop, stood up, walked out into the morning heat. One last time, no big realization, no redemption. Just a man who learned the hard way that you can't outrun yourself, even in paradise, especially in paradise.